raised concern over violent video games.
Is so violent.
They're immoral.
Particularly violent video games.
Adam Lanza was motivated by violent video games.
The level of violence on video games.
After seeing those clips, you probably think all gamers are dangerous and violent individuals.
Press left! Just press left!
Well, that's wrong. These stories are the examples of the very few times when gamers are violent. In this segment of the documentary, I'm going to be looking at video games leading into violence. I'm about to talk to 3 different people to see what they think of the situation. Do you play video games?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
Do you believe that video games lead to violence, and why do you think this?
I don't believe video games cause violence. That's a personal view. From most of the literature argues that it's fairly contentious. Some journals argue it does, some don't, but there's flaws in each methodology. So some of them test, so the ones that say it does, they're testing something which is too abstract. They're not testing violence, they're just testing like violent thoughts instead of behaviours, and there's barely any link between thoughts and behaviours. And the ones that do, that show it doesn't have an issue, have too low an effect size, so they're too low a statistical power, so they don't actually show anything. So even if video games did cause violence, the studies that test it wouldn't show it. So the literature's mixed, but I'd argue they don't.
It's down to the individual person, but for me, I've been playing GTA since I was 6 years old, and I've never once acted in the type of way GTA makes you, I suppose, in the game, or that's how, I've never acted that way at all.
The vast majority of people who play video games, like there are millions of gamers in the world, but you don't hear about, an attack every minute. It's just sort of ridiculous. It's disproportionately low numbers, really.
So, what are your sources on the subject, and do you think they show bias in any way?
Nearly entirely psychology journals, and each journal does show some form of bias. So you'd argue the developmental studies will look at everything from a developmental point of view, so they'll argue that video games do cause violence because they change the way you develop. Individual differences papers tend to look at it from more of an individualistic route, so they'll look at other causes, but still they're all biased to an extent, but still objective in some aspects.
Purely my standpoint, everyone's got their own opinions. I imagine people do say yes. Some people like me say no. I imagine there's some people in between. But you just got to also think about movies. Movies is exactly the same, probably if not worse, because they show presumably more gore because the CGI that they can do.
It's purely just my standpoint, really, but I know that there are sources out there that probably would back me up rather than disprove me.
Have you ever been violent or experienced violence because of video games?
Not because of video games, no.
Not because of a video game. I felt some type of way because I've lost a game, but not from the game, more just me.
Not because of video games, no. There was this time I punched someone in the stomach, but I'd say that was an entirely separate incident.
Do you feel that children should be allowed to play video games that show any form of violence?
I think children should be allowed to play video games. I do think it should be monitored with video games because violent video games do cause other issues. There's certain studies show a social detachment to some extent, but once again, very low effect. So I'd say children should be allowed to play video games, which include violence. I don't think violence really makes much of a difference.
Yeah, my stepbrother, I watch him play, some games that are they're not violent to the extent which I play GTA, but I've seen some sort of violence, just not in red blood, but in like a green goo type of way, and it's not affected him in any different.
I think it sort of depends on the age rating of the game. So obviously if a video game is age rated 18 or 16, then they shouldn't be playing it, really. Even though I've obviously played those kinds of games, but it is up to the parent at the end of the day. If the child is mature enough to handle some of these themes, then yeah, go ahead. But obviously if you're 7, you're playing Grand Theft Auto, I don't think that's a very good thing, really.
Well, as we just found out, gamers do not see themselves as violent despite playing violent video games.
Timeless, after all.
No one! I want to win today!